This has just been a crazy start to the week in the best way possible. The past 2 trading days, Monday and Tuesday, have just happened very, very fast, and I've gotten really good opportunities, but it's been so quick that I haven't even thought or had time to pick up the camera to explain what I was doing. So it's now Tuesday morning. After this trading session is over, I'm gonna come back, go into the charts, and show you the trades that I took, the reasoning behind them, the framework, and how I'm gonna go on with my week from here. So let's just get right into this. I'm gonna go all the way back to Sunday because that's where I'm going into the week with some form of plan or initial bias if I have any. And it was actually a good lesson because this week I was more interested to see if this could confirm a move higher. And I'll explain that here. We have these lows on NQ that were ran out in the previous week close, going back up into that range on Friday pretty aggressively. That to me looks like a decent framework for potential confirmation to trade this higher up into these failure swings, or what we could just call equal highs if you wanted to. We can go down even more here. At that point of reversal, we have a change in state of delivery where this low is a divergence with ES. You can mark that out. That's adding confluence to this, and a close above this series of down close candles that formed the reversal. That is a change in state of delivery. Now I could look to say if Monday does this, that can set up framework for me to trade up into these highs. Now, what I need money to do in this framework is to either consolidate like this, and then Tuesday comes in and runs out that low. That's a good framework for me to buy. If Monday puts in a low itself intraday, and it doesn't need to trade back to that low, then Tuesday is simply a continuation. I need one of those two things to happen. Now, when Monday started to print, we got the opposite. We have previous day high now being ran out, which is Friday's high, which to me is a concern because then when we go down to an hourly, we are now seeing this as a bearish daily profile into previous day high, where we're now getting bearish development on this here, a change in state of delivery. And then if this is going to turn bullish, where of course, if Monday is going to turn into a reversal day and I can trade Tuesday as a continuation, I'm seeing this as the low that needs to hold, running out that intraday low, respecting these down close candles and starting to trade higher. If this is going to be a reversal day and I can trade Tuesday to the upside, this low needs to hold for me. And if I go over to ES as well, that same idea is holding up. This low should hold if Monday is going to close as a reversal day. And what we have here is failure to do that. Again, an initial reversal, change in state of delivery, and a new close below this up close candle. This to me marks the idea that Monday is going to close in a down close day. So this actually acted as an entry for me. So I'm reversing my bias on the premise of this development of Monday. And I took a positional entry on NQ here with the assumption that Monday was going to close bearish and I could get on side with an overnight swing for Tuesday to then continue lower as it is here. What I didn't expect when I did that is entering here with a stop loss at this high is I was looking to think that maybe it would close around this area here. And I would still be swinging because my main objective is this low. And then a little bit further out, there's some added lows that I could be targeting. What I wasn't anticipating, which of course I'm fine with, is that it broke down entirely intraday on Monday. So I don't take trades in Monday with the intention of them being a day trade. This here, I was looking to position into an overnight swing. That's why I'm comfortable with a wide stop loss and a wide target, but it broke down very quickly. And of course, when that happens, great, I'm gonna take it, but that was not my initial intention with that trade. So that's what I took on Monday. And then I'm basically going to look at Monday's close. What is Monday telling me now about what I should do on Tuesday? And Tuesday is a more classic signature of the type of trades that I look for. Going back out to the daily, we have Monday running out this relevant high, manipulation, closing below this up close candle on the daily. That to me confirms that this high does not need to be traded back to, and I can look for Tuesday to be a continuation lower into a draw. So I have this framework on NQ, but I can even go over to ES, zoom out a bit, and we have this really clear draw of these lows lining up for price to then continue through even previous day low here. So I'm going back and forth between correlated pairs to get framework, to get a draw, and that's what I'm doing in this case. So I can mark out this opposing candle. The opening price is what I'm focused on. And for the following day, I'm looking for a bearish daily profile to print because that acts as my confirmation in respect to this up close candle. And respecting an up close candle, I'm going to take 50% of that candle body. I want to see the market remain below this level here. Moving down here to the 15 minute, we have the open of the day consolidation a run of that high here, series of up close candles which form that intraday high, taking the opening price of that lowest up close candle. That's a change in state of delivery. Now, in respect to that, we have a new series of up close candles closed back below. This here is the development of a bearish daily profile, because during the London session, we have a reversal confirmation. And then going into the New York session, we have a continuation where I expect a London reversal to a New York continuation. And this is just establishing a confirmation to a narrative and bias that I've already determined. So I took my entry in this candle here, stop loss at the opposing swing of these up close candles. And I'm looking for at least previous day low, but even more beyond that. But of course, if I'm going to previous day low or just slightly more, I have about a 2-hour trade. That's what I'm looking for. But then I get even more on this here. So partials at previous day low, because of course there's always that potential that price can reverse there, but we have a little bit more follow through, getting more off that position. And at this point through the open, I was already out of the majority of that trade, but I still thought there was more to be taken from it. So I had a hard stop loss at my break even, and I was tracking ES at this same time because it was showing relative weakness. So looking at ES to make sure that there was still room for this to go lower, which it did hold. If you look following the open, it stayed propped down. That's what I'm tracking while I have a hard break even stop, just to make sure that I'm not taking any loss. I'm willing to give up that unrealized profit on the last contract, but I don't want to take a loss on it. You can see the difference here with NQ getting a little bit higher back up, but my break even is still remaining up here, not taking me out. I'm noticing that ES is holding weaker, and that pulled down NQ as well. So I got a final scale down here on that contract, closing out that position fully. And that just gives you some insight into my trade management. So with that review now over, you saw the last 2 trades that I took on Monday and Tuesday of this week. But there's one lesson that I wanted to bring up that I think is very important with this, especially in this context. It's that it's easy to see these trades and then forget at the same time that the past 2 weeks, while indices has been trending and expanding lower pretty consistently, I haven't been on side with the majority of that move. And even though my bias has been generally correct with that move lower, I have not gotten the trades to execute. And that's because my confirmation and the framework intraday simply has not been there until this week. And the reason I bring that up and why I think it's important, it's that you can have the right bias and end up with no trades at all. You have to separate bias from execution. These two things are so completely different. And understanding that, it's made it easier for me to stay disconnected and to not feel any type of way when I'm sitting back while watching the market expand in a direction that I knew I got correct. I'm always doing my best to stay very grounded in my system and detached from the moves that the market is making, because that stuff does not matter. It matters if I have a setup, then I have to be ready to execute. And it's easy to be in the mindset over these past 2 weeks that I should have caught these trades or it sucks to miss out on this. No, you have to be in the mindset that a new opportunity is always coming. And when that does happen, you have to be ready to step up and execute. And yesterday and today just happened to be those days where it was time to step up, and I got the trades that I was looking for.
My watch and my drop top and my persona. We hit the highway 155 with my whole foot on the dash. She's in my air, she's got no fear. She could care less if we crash. But on my radar, I've got some nerve to play hard. I waited for my chance. We'll play boys, we don't test.
It's Wednesday morning now and the markets are continuing to move pretty well here. But unlike the past 2 days where I was trading on indices, today I took a trade on Euro because indices weren't looking that great. And I'm looking for very simple trades in the market. So I thought it was a good time to show you how I'm cycling through the markets and which markets I'm actually looking at to find good trades on each day. Because to me, I'm looking for 3 things. When I go on the daily, I want a super clear framework that I can work off of. It's giving me my bias and my narrative. Then I want a very clear confirmation, which is my daily profile. And then the third thing, alongside my bias and my daily profile, I want an entry signature that is ideally on a higher time frame, like a 30-minute or a 50-minute, because that's where I find my best trades. This is the watch list that I'm keeping track of every single trading day. It's split up into 3 different asset classes. There's indices, NQ, and ES. Forex, the major currency pairs, that's really all I care about. And then other, which is basically just commodities of gold and oil. These are the markets that I am tracking throughout the day. The way that I work around these markets is slightly different. So indices for me, me, that is where I am the majority of the time. This is my main market. It's what I have the absolute most experience with. So these I am watching every single day, and I can track these in a little bit more detail because I just understand the tendencies of these markets. I can track them intraday and find slightly more trades, which I wouldn't find on these other markets. So a lot of focus goes here. But when the indices market doesn't have a good setup or isn't framed well in the higher time frames, I can then go over to Forex and commodities, in specific Euro USD and GBP USD. Mainly here, I have most of my focus towards Euro, and GBP to me is something where if Euro has a setup, if GBP USD is relatively stronger, notably, then I will long that pair. If it's relatively weaker, then I will short that pair. I'm only using it for relative strength and weakness. Everything else, I'm focused on Euro and the relationship with dollar because it's inversely correlated. So I'm tracking these two with divergences. And then finally, there's gold and oil. These two, again, I need a quality higher time frame setup, and then I will look into these markets. If not, then I don't care much about them. I'm not going to track these intraday on a lower time frame. I want those simple 3 steps that I talked about before, and then I will put on trades in these markets if indices is not showing anything of interest. So you just saw the pairs that I trade. So here's indices on the daily time frame, and even when I break it down to an hourly, I'm looking for something super clear that is obvious for me. And on the daily, it's a bit conflicting with how previous day closed in opposition with a bearish daily profile. So for me, the upside is better framed where we have a really strong close back into the range. That leads me to usually look towards the upside, especially after on ES. We've taken out all of these lows. I don't really have much left to target. So a more logical move to me is something to the upside. And then also when I go down to the hourly, this is where I can look for a daily profile. Of course, it's developing more bearish, which is not confirming what I'm seeing on the daily. I'm also looking at how price is within this range of this candle. We got a very odd close in Tuesday's candle, which leaves a more difficult framework to understand if price should reverse here or if it should stay internal, or where should it go where that established higher low of day should be in place. And it's just simply not here. There's a lot more decision making that has to go into how the day is developing, waiting for the open, all of these different factors. And if I can look at another market where I don't have to think about these things, I'm gonna do it. And that's what we have Euro here for. When I go to the daily on Euro, we have a really great framework, and it's almost immediately obvious. We have this low that was ran out. So a range, a manipulation, and then an expansion, clearly breaking out through these highs here with that deep close through. That leads me to a Monday low, looking for that Wednesday continuation. So I have a weekly range, I have a daily framework, and that's what I need to get a really good bias. Now I need a daily profile to align with this. Go down to the hourly. I can mark out that daily opening price here. And then going into New York, again, these are the hours that I'm looking to trade. Usually for Forex, starting at 7, that's where I'm going to be looking. That's when I'm awake anyways. So right around 7 is where I open my charts. We've already put in a low of day and began that continuation. So I'm simply looking for, during the New York session, that first continuation signature. So if I go down to the 30-minute, here we have a run on a short-term low, series of down close candles. That opening price here in the continuation when the market is expanding, and this is why we love trending markets, and this makes everything else easier, is that when the market is expanding, when we close above down close candles, that is what I expect to support price as it continues higher. So once we get this close above, that becomes my entry with my stop loss at this opposing swing. So setting that up, getting an entry here, putting that stop at an opposing swing, I got filled pretty well here. A 2-hour trade is very much in play, but there's oftentimes more on the table. So I scale a decent part of my position out, and then the rest of it becomes trade management. Especially when I look left here, there's not much else to target. So I'm just looking for what can I get on this trade on those final partials, scaling out as the market continues to go higher. And these are the trades that are extremely simple because I go top down. There's not much thinking that needs to be done. This is what I'm looking for every single day if I can get it. Here on Thursday, it's going to be a no trade day. I'm not interested in anything in the market across indices, Forex, and commodities. So I'm going to show you why here. Here on indices, working within a higher time frame range, failure swings to both sides. So it's completely neutral to me. I have no bias and no framework to work off of. Forex, I was looking for a potential return back into the range after this phase of expansion, but the daily profile is not aligned well enough, and I'm not interested in stepping in front of this particular trend at the moment. And then oil and gold, these two markets don't have anything on the daily that I'm interested in taking. So I'm completely offside, out of the market today. I've had a really good start to this week, but in any given week, even if I have a really good start, I'm only sitting out because I don't have a setup. When things are going really well, I don't want to sit back. I'm willing to push my edge if it's there. I'm simply not trading because I don't have a framework to work off of. In the same way, if I had a really bad start to the week, that wouldn't make me feel cautious about trading going forward. If I had a setup, I would take it as I usually do because I'm on a trade by trade basis. That's what I'm focused on. So today, on a trade by trade basis, there is nothing for me regardless of what happened earlier this week. So it's a no trading day.
I need some water. Something came over me. Way too hot to simmer down. Might as well overheat. Too close to comfort.
Today is NFP. It's in about 30 minutes, give or take. And this day, I will not go into it with any specific bias or expectation for what the market should do, because NFP in specific is a very high impact event. It hits the market fast with a lot of volatility, and that can change a lot of what you may have expected going into the day. So for me, it's easier go in with no expectation, see what the market does and how it enters the market at 8:30. And if it sets up a valid framework, then I have a trade. If not, then I'm going to tell very quickly that there's no opportunity and my week will be completely over. I'm only focused on indices for NFP. Every other market I'm counting out. So if it's not there, my week's over. If it is, then I'll have a trade and I will show you here. So looking at the way this entered the market here, there is actually some potential for a trade opportunity. From yesterday, you can see how this is range price action. That's why I mentioned I wasn't trading within here, but now running out that low, potentially NFP confirming that this low should not be traded back to the manipulation of the low of that range. If this gets a close above, I'll likely be watching this on a 15-minute. There is some potential to trade this. And then usually with these days, I'll find myself waiting into 9:30. That is usually pretty likely with this here. It adds that extra layer of confirmation for me, and it just makes sense because it's just in another hour. Price usually doesn't go that far. So we'll see what this does, and we'll wait for this 15-minute close most likely. And the usual times where I don't like NFP is where we have a low ran out and a high, and it just ends up going right back to where it was before. And that shows it's not really meaningful, the news itself. And in a day where the news should be driving my bias, if the news is neutral, then I don't really have an opportunity to act on. So we'll give this some time and come back to it in a few minutes. You can see here how it's now wicking this high. So not being too aggressive, trying to play some continuation or assuming this is a low, letting these closes occur. And I'm really not wanting to be so aggressive on a day like this anyways. So continuously allowing this to develop some more. And again, it's coming back to that open. If it starts to return here and then moving very slowly, it makes the day less interesting for me. And NFP days have to be extra careful because it's easy to get in the mindset of this is a volatile day. I'm ready to put on my risk. I'm ready to get all these trades. It doesn't always result into that. So you have to stay level-headed and just stick with a solid plan, because it doesn't mean you're going to get trades just because there's high impact news today. Again, not anything of interest here. It's returning back to where it opened up at the moment, at least. That news release to me doesn't mean that much. You have manipulations on both sides, returning back to that open. I have nothing to act on here. Likely it's 850 right now. Very likely to wait to the open to potentially see it through, but for now I don't feel there's any opportunity in the market. This is really all about avoiding losses. So to me, the way that I view this is if I'm entering a market where I am likely to lose, but instead I am avoiding it, I am then in turn making money because I am staying flat in a time where I would otherwise be losing. With the way that the open is trading here, it is uninteresting to either side of this market. I don't have any bias or anything that I could see aligning with a confirmation on the higher time frames. So that is where I'm going to end my trading week. I don't want to sit along here on these lower time frames. That's where you're going to find yourself trying to justify some trade that isn't actually there. So I'm capping it off here, and whatever happens in price for the rest of the day is none of my business. With it now being the weekend, that means it's time to review the past week of trading performance. I want to look into the trades that I took, the trades that I didn't take, every decision, the good, the bad, and anything in between. That's what I'm focused on here, because regardless of the outcome of this week, whether it was my best week ever, my worst week ever, there's something that I can take to bring into next week and improve on, because over time, when you do this week over week, that compounds a lot and you consistently make improvements. So that's what the goal of this is here. I'm going to put a pop-up here of the weekly review sheet that I use. You can look at it and follow along with me as I'm doing this, and I'm also going to link it down below in the description so you can download it for yourself. And every single weekend, you run through these same questions for your own trading. So first, for for this week, I'm looking at my 3 trades. The winning trade section, go down with these questions, top down. Is this a trade you would take again without knowing the outcome was a win? And for me, all 3 of these I would absolutely take again without question, regardless of what the outcome was. Each one had a great framework that I felt super confident in, so it's definitely something that I would execute on again if presented. Now I go down to the yes section because that was the answer to the one above it. What would you improve with your execution on this trade? Now with these 3 trades, the one thing I noticed in my execution, this is going to pair with that second question, how could you manage this trade to increase the profit? I noticed that my last bit of partials were slightly early, so I have to be able to identify the condition of the market where euro was expanding very heavily. It was very volatile in the indices market. So I should have been picking up on that and maybe letting a little bit go on my runners to cap off my profit slightly more. So that's something that I'll be thinking of going forward from here. And then the third question, what can you do to repeat this type of trade in the future? For me, these 3 setups are super classic. It's the type of trade that I don't have to think much about because it's just so obvious in price. And it's something that I've been looking for many years. So these trades, it's just simply staying rooted in my process, just looking for trades that align with my system. If I can continue to do that, then I'll keep catching on to these same type of trades. Now moving down to overall performance, is there a valid trade that you missed in this past week? And then the sub question is, what was the reason for missing it and how can you get on side with a similar move in the future? With this, since I've been looking at new markets more recently, I have been missing some trades. For example, earlier in this week, I missed some trades on euro just because I haven't really adapted to looking across different pairs as much. So that is something that I could point out and say, yeah, I missed some really nice moves and really valid setups on other markets. I'm going to try to train myself and improve on tracking different markets at the same time within a single day. Moving on, what did you do this week that you did not do last week and how did it impact the outcome? And the main one I want to focus on here is, did results from the previous week impact your mindset this week either positively or negatively? This is a really important question because there may be things, if you're not actively reviewing it, you may not realize that you're carrying over baggage from the previous week into how you're making decisions within the current week. Whether it's good or bad, both of them can be negative in your trading because you don't want that influence going into a new week. So for me, last week was just a fairly slow or just a decent week that I would call it. That didn't make me hesitate going into the market this week because oftentimes you can go from a slow week to being a little bit more hesitant, thinking that the market's going to continue that trend. I stepped up when I had my setup, so I'm pretty happy about that. And then to the last 2 questions, did you notice any repeating strength which resulted in positive outcomes that you want to build on? The main one here for me is that I was able to notice the volatility and the opportunities in the market just based on the condition. So more of the markets going through cycles of having really explosive price moves, being really volatile, and being able to get into those markets once you notice it earlier on. That's a big one for me, especially when I'm focused on these larger moves. That's where I make the majority of my money. If I can notice that a market is heating up or there's a really good opportunity or just moving well overall and then moving my risk there, I think that's really important, especially for longevity in this style of trading. And to the final question, did you notice any repeating mistake which resulted in negative outcomes that you need to resolve? So for this, it hasn't been decisions that I've actively been making. It's more the ones that I've been avoiding slightly that I think is reducing my outcomes. And that's that I've been a little bit hesitant to pyramid my setups when that's something that I've been wanting to build on going forward. So that's something that I'm going to be focused on a little bit more. I think the negative part of it is that the markets have been really good and there's been opportunity to do so when I haven't. So that's a mistake on my part because I'm missing out on adding profits to my position without increasing my actual risk. So that's something I will be looking to improve on going to next week and every week after that. So you just saw some insight into my weekly review. Now I would highly recommend that you run through that template yourself, go through each of those questions top to bottom, and it will make you a better trader week over week. And if you have some breakthrough while going through those questions, share them in the comments and I would love to see it because I know it's going to be super helpful for all of you. And with that said, that is everything I have for you in this video. I hope you found it valuable and I will see you in the next one.
This is life, immortality.